Week 3 of the fantasy football season, and here's top 15 tight ends I'm ranking this week. Number 1, Trey McBride of the Arizona Cardinals. So far, the numbers haven't been all that great for Trey McBride. Week 1, he didn't do much. It was a pedestrian offense. And then week 2, 6 catches, 67 yards, and he fell onto a ball in the end zone that was fumbled for a touchdown. So this week in a potential shootout versus the Detroit Lions. And Trey McBride, tight end's been a bad position so far where a lot of people underperforming, and at least he's been putting up some decent numbers compared to some of these other tight ends he drafted earlier. So this week in a matchup and where he's been better at home than he's been on the road throughout his NFL career, I like him as a top option. Number 2, George Kittle of the San Francisco 49ers. Now with Deebo Samuel out multiple weeks with injury, George Kittle's workload is going to go up, and pretty much it's down to him and Brandon Ayuk on this offensive starters going into the season in the lineup, with obviously Christian McCaffrey out multiple weeks, even though Jordan Mason's filled in well, and Deebo out. I think George Kittle is going to get targets early and often, and he's got a great track record at division rival, the Los Angeles Rams, throughout his career. So this week, Kittle, he might be high to some people on this list, but like I said, it's been a struggling position so far. And at least last week he found the end zone and had over 70 yards. Number 3, Travis Kelce of the Kansas City Chiefs. So Travis Kelce, he was the first or second tight end off the board in fantasy drafts this summer. And so far it's been a big disappointment for Travis Kelce, no doubt about it. But now with Isaiah Pacheco out 6 to 8 weeks with injury, I think this Chief team's going to throw the football a little bit more and ways to get the ball to Travis Kelce. Last week he didn't do anything, got stopped short on that shuffle pass at the goal line. But this week in a decent matchup at the Atlanta Falcons, where their defense is in the middle of the pack, I think Travis Kelce could go out there and have a bounce-back performance. But if he has another bad game, it's definitely a telling sign that he's on the decline as Kelce, and he would be dropping down the rankings next week. Number 4, Brock Bowers of the Las Vegas Raiders. So Brock Bowers, he's quickly jumping up the rankings, and I said it all preseason that he was one of the highly touted tight end prospects to come in the NFL in the last 10 seasons. And I know he's on a rated team where the offense isn't all that great, but Gardner Minshew's getting the football to Brock Bowers in good spots. And this week he's got a great matchup versus the Carolina Panthers that obviously can't stop anyone. And we saw in week 1 that Foster Moreau and Juwan Johnson both had touchdowns versus Panther defense. I think Bowers goes out there once again, and that is his 3rd double-digit fantasy game to start his career in a row in PPR leagues. Number 5, Sam Laporta of the Detroit Lions. So Sam Laporta, his numbers have definitely dropped off, and he was the number 1 tight end in most fantasy leagues off the board, and he's more concerning to me than Travis Kelce right now, because Jameson Williams, he's playing a lot of snaps. He's finally playing up to potential where they drafted him a few seasons ago, and he's out targeting and out route running is Sam Laporta, is Jameson Williams. This is the number 2 wide receiver. This week, I know it's going to be a potential shootout at Arizona, but Amon-Ra St. Brown's going to get his weekly. Jahmyr Gibbs, he gets a decent amount of work out of the backfield catching the football. And like I said as well, Jameson Williams now, he's come on, and he's definitely playing great football. So Sam Laporta definitely falling off, but it wouldn't be surprising if Laporta puts in a good game this week. Number 6, Mark Andrews of the Baltimore Ravens. So Mark Andrews, week 1, he didn't do much. Isaiah likely outplayed him big time. But then week 2, it wasn't a great game for Andrews in this Raven team, but he did finish with 9.5 fantasy points in PPR leagues and outplayed Isaiah Likely easily in the week 2 tough loss versus the Raiders. So this week, a good matchup at the Dallas Cowboys. We saw last week the New Orleans Saints went up and down the field on this Cowboy defense, and this is going to be a high-scoring game, I believe, between the Baltimore Ravens and Cowboys. Both teams coming off bad losses in games they thought they were going to win, especially the Cowboys losing 44-19 versus New Orleans Saints. So this week, I think Mark Andrews, he's going to have a good ball game. The Cowboys linebacker for Dallas isn't all that great. And last week, like I said, they got torched by Derek Carr in that offense. So this week, I think Mark Andrews goes out there and has a good performance. Number 7, Dalton Kincaid of the Buffalo Bills. So Dalton Kincaid, so far, it hasn't been a good start for him. But like I said, tight end, a lot of tight ends really haven't done much in the early going this season. So Dalton Kincaid last week, 7.1 fantasy points in PPR leagues. In week 1, he only had 2 fantasy points, is Kincaid. But there's really no number 1 option in this passing game. And last week, the way the game script went with James Cook running for 3 touchdowns and the defense making big plays for Buffalo, they didn't have to throw a lot. But this week, I think they're going to throw a little bit more. I believe they're going to beat the Jacksonville Jaguars on Monday Night Football. But Dalton Kincaid, like I said, he could carve out that number 1 option in the passing game because Keon Coleman hasn't done much. Curtis Samuel's been non-existent. And Khalil Shakir is more of a slot option, but he's been the more impactful wideout so far in the early going. Number 8, Mike Gesicki of the Cincinnati Bengals. So Mike Gesicki's been one of the main targets on the Cincinnati Bengal team and one of the better tight ends in the early going. Last week, a big ball game, 7 catches, 91 yards versus the Kansas City Chiefs. And this week, another good matchup versus the Washington Commanders that are one of the worst defenses in all the league. And going back to week 1, even versus the Patriots, he had a touchdown, but it was called back. So Gesicki finally playing up to potential. He's playing with the best quarterback he's played with in his NFL career is Mike Gesicki, and he's a big target and someone who can move the chains and make plays. Number 9, Kyle Pitts of the Atlanta Falcons. So Kyle Pitts, I don't like the matchup a lot. In week 2, he didn't do much with the Philadelphia Eagles. In week 1, he did find the end zone, but if he didn't get that touchdown, it was a low-impact ball game for Kyle Pitts. So Kyle Pitts, I've said it a lot, great playmaker. He could line up anywhere on the field, but he just hasn't done much in his NFL career. I know he's had big quarterback play leading up to this year. Taylor Heineke, Marcus Mariota, Desmond Ridder over the last few seasons, but this week in a tough matchup, and last week where the passing game was going through Drake London, Darnell Mooney, and Ray McLeod, Bijan Robinson. Kyle Pitts, he's a little bit down on that pecking order. Number 10, Isaiah Likely of the Baltimore Ravens. So Likely, week 1, he went off with a monster game, 9 catches, 111 yards, and a touchdown. And if his toe wasn't out, would have had 2 touchdowns and the game-winning touchdown in that one. So last week, he came back down to earth versus the Vegas Raiders, but he's going to be a big option all season, I believe, in this Raven offense. So this week in a matchup at the Dallas Cowboys, where they got torched last week for 44 points versus the New Orleans Saints, I think Isaiah Likely goes out there, has a bounce-back performance, and he's a top 2 or 3 option in this passing game every week, I believe, for this Baltimore Raven team. Some weeks I think Andrews will get his numbers, and some weeks, like we saw in week 1, Likely will. Number 11, Jake Ferguson of the Dallas Cowboys. So it looks like Jake Ferguson's going to return. The Cowboys expect him to return in this ball game here, and that's what they need right now. After last week, they got the doors blown off 44-19, and besides CeeDee Lamb, there wasn't really a legit threat on the field play in and play out. So Ferguson had a great season last year with Dak Prescott and this Dallas Cowboy team, and this tight end's a big part of this Mike McCarthy system and schemes and getting open and making plays. If he's back this week, Jake Ferguson, it's a boost for the Cowboys offense, and this could be a potential shootout versus the Baltimore Ravens. Number 12, Hunter Henry of the New England Patriots. So Hunter Henry last week, he monster ball game, over 90 yards receiving, and he possibly could be the number 1 option overall in this passing game for this New England Patriot team. We know they got a collection of wide receivers, some veterans, some young guys who are improving. Jalen Polk found the end zone last week. Demario Douglas, Tyquan Thornton, KJ Osborne, Kendrick Bourne. So like I said, a collection of wide receivers, but no one's emerged really as that number 1 option. Where last week, Hunter Henry went out there, had the monster ball game, and Jacoby Brissett, he's always liked targeting the tight end, and he's more of middle of the field, short yardage type of passing quarterback. So this week, I know the matchup isn't all that great at the New York Jets, but I think Hunter Henry could go out there on targets alone and looks and has a decent ball game. Number 13, Pat Freiermuth of the Pittsburgh Steelers. Every week, he's a borderline top 12 tight end is Pat Freiermuth. He's the number 2 option in this offense for the Pittsburgh Steelers in the passing game. It goes George Pickens, then Pat Freiermuth. We know in the backfield they got Harris and Jalen Warren. And so far, Justin Fields, he hasn't had that big running game. So Pat Freiermuth, he's getting targets. He's putting up some points in PPR leagues. And tight end's been a tough position in the first 2 weeks of the season. So Freiermuth, as a starting option this week, I wouldn't have a problem with it. Just the only thing, his ceiling is a little limited compared to the plays in front of him. Number 14, Dallas Goedert of the Philadelphia Eagles. So Dallas Goedert, he's got a limited ceiling, I believe, for this Philadelphia Eagle team and for fantasy owners. I know a couple of years ago, he was one of the better tight ends in fantasy football. With the emergence of Devonta Smith, his numbers have dropped off the last couple seasons. He is Dallas Goedert. And even last week, I thought his points were better than what they were, where he only had 6.10 fantasy points with A.J. Brown out of the lineup. So Dallas Goedert, they've used him more as a blocking tight end over the last season and change, where they got a lot of good weapons. But with A.J. Brown out, maybe Dallas Goedert could emerge in this game and have a breakout performance, but I don't know. That's why I think there's a borderline option in the start-sit video earlier this week and number 14 this week. Even though it's a good matchup, at the New Orleans Saints. And the 15th and final tight end up rankings, Colby Parkinson of the Los Angeles Rams. Now with all these injuries in this Ram lineup, Puka Nacua out, Cooper Kupp out, Colby Parkinson, he might get more target share in this ball game versus San Francisco 49ers. I know it's a tough matchup. I know last week Parkinson was quiet, only 1 catch, 12 yards and 2 targets. But that's a game you just throw out. It was a bad performance all around besides Kyren Williams for the Los Angeles Rams. So Colby Parkinson, he showed good flashes week 1. We had 4 catches, 47 yards. And like I said, with now Cooper Kupp out of the lineup as well, I think he's going to work his way into some targets this week. So that's the top 15 tight ends I'm ranking for week 3 of the fantasy football season.